talking Facebook friends? Or?
Oh God, no.
Monkey Sphere says 150.
Yep.
150.
That's a lot of friends. How do you maintain that relationship?
Well, 150 is the number of human beings that you can potentially care about at a single time.
And distinguish as human beings and not just some other face in the crowd.
Now even I'm learning something at this blue stone.
It's the Dunbar number.
Yep, also known as the monkey sphere if you read the fact.
Okay, now you're frightening me. Let's talk about friends again, because that's something I'm a little more familiar with. So we all have friends, but somebody already asked the question, what do we mean by friends? Do we mean real friends? Do we mean Facebook friends? How many Facebook friends do you guys have? Like 900. You're a rookie, by the way.
I think I'm like 160.
I've been trying to keep it low.
You know, over 50% of Facebook users have
That's about where I'm
100,000.
at too.
So I went to 2 different high schools, 2 colleges.
How can you possibly maintain friendships with 1,000 people? What does friend even mean anymore? Are they real friends, or does that have some other meaning? What's the definition of friend?
Someone that will help you.
Someone that will help you. Can you call any of those 1,000 people on your Facebook?
Most of them.
I do have that, but no.
Would they even give you their number?
The number's on Facebook.
Both of those people
As
just
you can
call
tell, I
and
have
they
no friends
text
on
them.
Facebook. But I think the meaning of friend is really changing in our society. Friend to me means someone that I maintain a relationship with. It is that person I can call when my heart's been broken. It's a person I can go downtown with and share a cupcake. It's somebody I can shoot the shit with if I just want to hang out. And who appreciates being in my presence. But friends, Facebook friends, do not carry that same connotation. It's a much different relationship. It's somebody that has asked you, can you please click this button and acknowledge me virtually? Acknowledge that I exist. To me, that's a much different interpretation of the word
It's the first step of a
friends.
relationship.
And friends are what determines what our network of connection is all about. It helps map out who we know and how we know them, and it helps to map out how connections travel throughout our whole society. So there's social network theory that studies this. And I want to read you a quick quote. A fascinating game grew out of this discussion. One of us suggested performing the following experiment to prove that the population of the Earth is closer together now than they've ever been before. We should select any person from the inhabitants of the Earth, anyone, anywhere at all. He bet us that using no more than 5 individuals, one of whom is a personal acquaintance, he could contact the selected individual using nothing except the network of personal acquaintances. So what is that describing?
5 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Similar. That is a derivative of the 6 degrees of separation.
Oh.
Right? So when do you think that quote was written?
Probably longer ago than we. Yeah.
That's true. That was written in 1929. Even in 1929, they were thinking our world has become small because we are able to connect everywhere. We're able to reach anyone in the world through 6 degrees of separation. Do you think that's true today?
Yeah.
I don't. I'd argue for most of it, not for all of it. I mean,
It's a tough question to answer, isn't it?
like in the middle
So
of the
how do
third
we
world or
figure it out?
something.
So since 1929, people have been thinking about it.
Likely.
Even Stanley
Doable.
Milgram, who I'm sure you all
think it's
remember
doable.
from War
Likely.
I, studied it.
Not doable.
He
Yes,
did what was called the
absolutely. We have more
small
feelers out there
world
than you'd think.
experiment, and he gave 296 postcards to a select sample of people and said, contact this random guy in Boston. And the rule is you can only send the postcard to one of your acquaintances. Only 5 postcards made it. 22 made it with average connection time of 5 different links, just over 5. So the 6 degrees held true. The first guy that wrote it was just a Hungarian author, and I think he pulled that number out of a hat, personally. But Milgram proved that there is a connection between 6 degrees of separation and our connection to people all over the world. Now, that's been studied since then. And what's the modern day place we would look to study this connection?
Social media.
Social media, Facebook. So the advantage we have over Milgram, whose participants had to rely on a random connection, Facebook researchers have the entire network at their disposal. They've got all 721 million of you on file, including your 69 billion connections. And they've mapped it out. And how many degrees of separation do you think exist in Facebook?
I think it's like 4.7 or something like that.
I think you're right. It's 4.74 the world over. That number goes down, actually, when we get closer together, as you can imagine. Because how many degrees of separation would there be between you and I?
Probably one, like 1 or 2.
Now, I know Chuck, and I know Chuck, so that's 1 degree.
I'm not on Facebook.
You don't have to.
Ha.
When we're talking local, all the connections get much closer together. So it's less degrees of separation on this campus as opposed to within the city or within the state or even within the country. So as we move from the country, the connection through Facebook is 3.73, and as we move out, it gets larger. It moves to just over 4.7. And so the connection between degrees of separation has gotten smaller. But what's the problem with that statistic? Because now you're going to walk away and tell me that the 6 degrees of separation don't exist.
Because you don't really necessarily like know those people.
You don't necessarily really know those people. And it's only the people that are actually on Facebook, right? You've got over, how many people in the world today?
Yeah.
Over 7
Just-
billion,
Just became
right?
over
In
7 billion.
October, we hit 7 billion. We are
Yeah,
just
I know.
one insignificant person among 7 billion